Western University football head coach Michael Faulds joins us. First of all, I suppose we should say congratulations on the new role, Michael, at your alma mater.
Yeah, thank you very much, Justin. Obviously, it's kind of been a whirlwind 24 hours. Lots of excitement from my family, and also a little bit of sadness. Obviously, it was a tough decision, and so many people that I care about in Kitchener-Waterloo. But it is exciting to come back, and it is a homecoming of sorts.
There's so many different questions, out there in the universe about how this happened and leaving Laurier and going to Western. So let's start there. The Golden Hawks gave you your first head coaching job at the ripe age of 29. You were a 3-year offensive coordinator at York University before going to the Golden Hawks as a head coach. Did you have any apprehension, hard feelings leaving behind what you had built at Laurier?
Well, most definitely. I'd be lying if I didn't say that. You mentioned it. I was 29 years old, no head coaching experience, graduated from a rival school in Western, and the athletic director, Peter Baxter, and his committee at the time hired me to become the next football coach after legends like Gary Jeffries and Tuffy Knight and Rich Newborough had just paved the way through that storied program. So the relationships I had at Laurier over 13 years, the people within that community, within that university, the countless players I interacted with over 13 years, that made this decision gut-wrenching. And what makes it worse is nowadays in the world of social media, it had to be kept so quiet. And it couldn't get out there, that I was even implying and, went through that process. And I didn't want my family to have to go through that. I didn't want the Laurier players or even the Western players to have to go through that. So it's unfortunate it had to be kept so quiet, and everyone abruptly, at 3 p.m. yesterday got shocked by it. But at the end of the day, I had to do what was best for my family. And that's what, allows me to sleep at night.
When you went through your decision-making process, did you have pros and cons on either side for Western and Laurier, or how did it come to be that you made the decision to go to Western?
Yeah, everything. Well, and I can tell you this, and it's advice for anyone making a big decision. You don't make it overnight. There's deliberation, you bring, your stakeholders into it, which for me is my wife, Stacy, and my kids, Chloe and Lucas. And yes, at the rightful ages of 11 and 9, I had to ask the kids, are you willing to move? Are you willing to do all this? So, people think, you're a football coach, you're making the decision. At the end of the day, it was a family decision. But as you mentioned, we did everything from pros and cons and all of that. I wouldn't say, it was one way or the other and maybe flip back and forth and all those things. I want the people to know it was a super tough decision. And I'm gutted for the people that I've left at Laurier and those relationships. I love them dearly, both the coaches and players. But at the same time, I hope it's okay to be equally as excited to be back at a place where I had blood, sweat, and tears, that I ran out of this tunnel. I'm currently right now sitting in an office where I used to sit over there and stare at Coach Marshall. So that's a pretty surreal moment for me right now. Obviously people have chattered that I love the color purple. I've just switched shades once again, but no, Justin, it wasn't an easy decision. A lot of people would say, two great options. It was also, very tough and stressful as well.
Blue used to be your color actually in high school, and then when you went to Toledo, and you did have a little bit of red in there at St. Andrews College, but purple, in your intercollegiate career for sure. When you look at the overall decision, was that the main thing that tipped it in Western's favor? The fact that you played there, were a star quarterback for the Mustangs, and just have that in your background?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of excitement there. There's something special about those 5 years. And, I've said that always in recruiting, whether I was recruiting at York, recruiting at Laurier, and what I'm about to do here. Those years, of young men 18 to say 25 when they're in their university years really help shape you. And usually your best friends in life are the guys you play university sports with, whether it's football, hockey, basketball, you're a track star, whatever, because you're surrounded by like-minded people that are going through the same adversity, pain, struggles, exciting moments, and they're at the same chapter of their life. So the tie to here, to be welcomed back like I have over the last 24 hours has been special. But I will say, it's not all me, being fully excited. Like I am sad as well at the same time. And I hope people can recognize it's okay to have two feelings at the same time, because it was a tough decision. And like I said, I can't say one single negative thing about Laurier. I absolutely love that chapter in my life. It was just time for Michael Faulds and his family to start the next chapter. And that's tough for some people to hear, but I think a 13-year chapter is long. I think a 13-year chapter is good, and it's okay that wasn't a 30-year chapter. We can still positively look at that 13-year chapter and look that, me and my family are starting a new one. And that's a place that not only I went to school, but my wife, Stacy, went to school here, and she's from London. Her family's from London. So it's a special homecoming for her as well.
How did you let the Laurier administration and arguably more importantly, your players with the Golden Hawks know that you were leaving?
Yeah, so the unfortunate thing this day and age is we had to keep it quiet. So apart from the athletic director, the associate athletic director, and ultimately the two coordinators, which I loved coaching with, Coach Ron Van Morkirk, our defensive coordinator, Coach Todd Galloway, the offensive coordinator, it was kept quiet. And I kid you not, Justin, and this goes for everyone, like, why wasn't I in the know? Why didn't I know? I had my sisters. I was in Coach Marshall's truck yesterday, and I was like, Coach, you want to hear how quiet I kept this? I was in his truck, and my sisters were texting me saying, how didn't you tell us at Christmas? So even my own family wasn't aware I was going through this process and wanting to, put my name in the hat and go through the interview process. So had to keep it quiet. And unfortunately, it came down to right before it went public, I poured my heart out in an email to the players and coaches. And, would I have loved to call a team meeting the first day back of the new semester and get the Laurier football coaches and players there? Yes, 100%. But then we would have had the theatrics of Lane Kiffin where Ole Miss called a team meeting today at 2:00. Well, it's out of the hat already, right? So, I think I would have loved to do it in person. I said that in the email, but I hope our players, at Laurier and the coaches at Laurier recognize Coach Faulds' own sisters didn't know ahead of time. And he was in an awkward position nowadays with social media that we wanted the institutions, both Laurier and Western, to be able to collaborate and break the news together. And it looked like they were able to do that.
You mentioned Lane Kiffin there, and social media is going to do its thing. So some people are comparing this to Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss, which is in a better place currently, for LSU, which is in a lesser place, let's call it. Similar for Laurier, right? You guys put the worst loss of at least the Greg Marshall era when you were with the Golden Hawks on the Mustangs in the final week of the OUA regular season in 2025. So I think it's a fair argument to say you're leaving a program that's in a better place for one that is behind it. Do you feel like that Lane Kiffin comparison is fair?
Yeah, I think it's an easy comparison because it's very frequent, or it's recent. And it's kind of the only thing you can think of because there haven't really been any other OUA head football coaches that have gone to become an OUA head football coach at another institution without a gap, right? So, Coach Marshall, who I'm taking over for, obviously was at McMaster, but he had a gap with the Hamilton Tiger Cats before coming back to Western. So there really hasn't been an example of this. So I don't blame people for making that comparison. I think the great difference is Lane Kiffin wasn't the quarterback for LSU. Lane Kiffin's wife's family isn't from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Michael Faulds played 5 years for the Western Mustangs. Stacy Faulds was a Western Mustang, and our family is here. So I think the comparison ends with, the theatrics of program to program and being head coach to head coach. But anyone who knows me, anyone knows the type of person I am, knows the character I have, and that this isn't just a spur of the moment. Let's see how many likes and retweets and stuff we can get. This was thought through, and as I said, painful for me and my family as well, because I really did love that 13-year chapter.
As much as there are some hard feelings at Laurier right now, which are understandable, I'll say I can vouch for your character. Our relationship goes back to being quarterbacks at John F. Ross CVI High School in Guelph, and me playing with the teammates that you played with. Dude, like, I can honestly remember, Michael, I don't know if I've told you this before, watching through the chain link fence at John F. Ross CVI when I was in grade 8 at King George, just down the road, and thinking, I want to be that guy one day. So I have a lot of respect for the person that you are. I do understand the hard feelings on the Laurier side. It makes sense, and you've clearly articulated those. So I don't want to get it twisted. I don't think it's the same situation as Lane Kiffin. You're not inviting reporters to come to do hot yoga with you and all of the dramatics around it. I just think it's an easy one and sort of a lighthearted question that people are making the comparison to, at least. Let's talk about Western and what drew you there through the process.
Yeah, I think it's what draws a lot of people here. There's a lot of tradition here. There's a lot of history here. And obviously, as I mentioned, there's a lot of ties to my family here. But what was special for me too, and, I told the Western players, this last night, that I sat in the very chairs they are sitting at when in 2006, Coach Larry Haler was my head coach. And then I was sitting in those very chairs that they were sitting at. And in 2007, Coach Greg Marshall was my head coach. So I've been exactly what they've been through. I'm just their current head coach now, taking over for a legend in Coach Marshall. So the one thing I said to them, no one can tell them what emotions they have. Some of them are going to be sad, some of them excited, some of them disappointed, some of them, happy, or everything in between, and maybe some of those emotions all at once. But the one thing I can assure them all is my respect and love for the outgoing coach is at the highest level it could ever be. I would have done everything for him, including playing on a torn ACL for a whole year. But it's a special place to me and my family. And it's great to come home. Today was filled with meeting so many new people, but also so many familiar people that I hadn't seen in 15 years. And it's exciting to be back and just try to carry the flag and the torch and push it forward a little bit more. Because like I said, Coach Marshall, Coach Haler, Darwin Samodiak, there have only been so many football coaches here. So to be sitting in this office, this chair, wearing this, polo shirt, these opportunities don't come very frequently. And, I don't take it lightly. And I'm going to do everything in my being to make sure we're successful.
It was about a year ago, Michael, that we spoke because you had signed a 5-year contract extension with Laurier. And there's some people out there wondering, what are the mechanics of that? Does Western have to buy Laurier out? Do the Mustangs just take that contract over? Can you share how that works?
Yeah, I won't get into the exact details, but I will say, I mentioned Peter Baxter, who hired me at the age of 29. I'd love to give a shout out to Kate McRae Bristol and Ryan Lannon, the two brass within the athletic department there at Wilfrid Laurier University, of giving me that contract last year and showing the confidence and the direction they wanted the program to go. It's sad for me leaving that. Like I said, a lot of people would say, you just signed on for 5 years. What are you doing? At the end of the day, I can, put my head down, like I said, at night, knowing that it was a family decision, and it's unfortunate how it's unraveled and how it went down. But at the end of the day, like I said earlier, with social media, Had to happen quickly. And, it's with student athletes' mind in the forefront. These are the two best football programs, or two of the best football programs in youth sports. So for football players at both institutions, the first day back of the semester, Monday, January 5th, they knew what the direction was happening at both programs. Says a lot. It would have been horrible. And sure, I might have been able to have a face-to-face or team meeting, and that might have looked better from the periphery. But if the direction of these programs wasn't settled till February or March, OUA fans could, scratch off these programs as, being really contenders in the 2026 season. So, kudos to both institutions getting it done the first day back of the new semester so that both programs can hit their off-season training and hit the ground running.
Could you share how long your contract is with Western?
Yeah, so it's 5 years. So it's that's kind of what I'm doing. But I say this right now. My plan is to be here until I don't want to coach football anymore. And that was also part of the decision. I will admit is how many more years am I going to coach? Like I looked at Coach Marshall, just put in 18 amazing years here at this institution. And I told myself, heck, I just turned 42. If I put in 18, heck, I'm already 60. It's not like I'm making a coaching change at 60. So, this is the place that my family and I decided I wanted to be. And it is, a 5-year contract, but I'm not looking for it to end in 5 years.
Do you think that you would take any transfer players with you from Laurier?
I think there's tons of speculation about that, but no. Obviously, Coach Marshall retired, and there is a transfer date for first and second year players. They're able to, even if they did dress the previous year, transfer without penalty. But they need to declare before the 15th of December. So there's going to be none of that. They can, unless, players didn't play the previous year, and then they've always been able to transfer. But no, I'm not looking for, Laurier football to, all of a sudden walk an hour down here and be, welcomed in here at Western football. Coach Marshall, Coach Gates, Coach Gleason, they've got a great program here. And I've got to come in, put my stamp, but I'm also coming in from a position of wanting to learn and see where we're at in recruiting, see where the team is at in terms of returning players, and work really hard to build on that.
In terms of the players, real quick, everybody focuses on the quarterback, as you know, being a former one. Do you envision Evan Hillock being your starting quarterback entering the 2026 season, or how could that play out?
Yeah, so Evan has graduated. Evan is done. So we'll wait and see. I haven't been able to have conversations with the players yet, the returning players, and who might be in the CFL and draft eligible. My intent is over the next 2 weeks. I call them exit meetings you do at the end of the season. I'm doing 10 to 15-minute entrance meetings with every single player on the roster. I told them they're going to get to know me because I'm going to do a lot of team meetings in front of them, but I want to get to know them. And right now I don't know many of them other than the ones I already recruited. But I believe, and the coaches have told me, there's a talented quarterback room here. Not the household names of an Evan Hillock who, won a lot of football games here, but, we'll roll out someone who's ready to go come August.
So Evan is graduated and done playing football.
Correct. That's my understanding. I have not talked to Evan, though, but that is my understanding.
Understood. And then in terms of your coaching staff, you mentioned Paul Gleason there. He's been, almost a lifer with the Mustangs. Do you plan to retain any of the staff that's already there with the Mustangs, or how will you go about that?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm coming in as someone who needs to learn, because I think as much speculation as there was about Michael Faulds going back to Western, I think what people don't realize is I never coached here. So I was on the downstairs of this building in the locker room and, getting crazy before games. I was never on the coaching side. I didn't have relationships with admissions, and I didn't do, the walk around campus tours and the recruiting visits. So I'm coming in a position I want to learn. And I like to empower our leadership. So Coach Gates, Coach Gleason, Coach Miles, who does the special teams, Sean Jameson, who's a big part of the program here. I need to learn in the next 2 weeks what they do here at Western Mustang football. And then share some ideas. Well, I like this in recruiting. I want to change our practice plan like this. Spring camp, we should do this. But I want to learn from them, utilize their expertise, and build off of that. So I'm not looking to make any earth-shattering changes. I will say, a lot of people have reached out to me over the last 24 hours. A lot of people excited, some people wanting to help out in any way they can. So that is special, and we'll be able to roll out a really impressive coaching staff.
Could we see Michael Faulds, the head coach and offensive coordinator, or do you plan to have an offensive coordinator?
Yeah, I plan to have an offensive coordinator. And I did my time there at Laurier from time to time when I started out, and then a little stint in between. But, when I had Coach Soria, who's now the head coach at Guelph, I loved my role being the quarterback coach with the head coach. And most recently, with the brilliant mind of Coach Todd Galloway, I was able to do the same. Still get my fix and coach the quarterbacks and, have a whistle in my mouth. But, being the manager, managing personalities, building culture, setting expectations in the weight room, that's truly my calling. And that's what I would like to do here. And I'm excited to learn from Coach Gates what he does offensively. Things have changed, obviously, over the 16 years since I was a player here, but there are some familiarities. They still like to throw a good dig. They still like to throw the odd deep comeback. And we run power football. But I'll give my input in all three phases of the ball.
You didn't even mention shoveling the snow off the field to practice.
Yes. No, we'll definitely won't make excuses to work hard.
Do you plan to carry out the same thought process there in terms of if you don't make it to the Vanier Cup, the Mustangs will be practicing all the way up to it?
We'll see. Like I think I made it clear yesterday, the expectations. Like I'm a body of work, process-driven person. And game days is one of my least favorite days of the year. It's an accumulation of the 12 months of body of work, but hearing right now in the background the music and the weights clanging, like that is right up my alley. Knowing that the guys are working hard, the grind within the meeting rooms, the practice days, I think that's where guys are going to see me around a lot. They're going to see me in town all summer. Pushing them throughout the summer. So that's where I want to, see this team grow. And then, at the end of the day, we only have 8 games for 3 hours, right? So 24 hours of the year is guaranteed that we're playing a game. That's it. So that's why the body of work and the process has to be at the forefront.
Why do you say game days are your least favorite days of the year?
Well, for me, I carry a lot of stress. So, obviously game days are fun when you're up and you're winning, but there's a lot of stress involved in there too. And I think I hold the pressure of I want the boys to perform. We've set out the plan, we've gone through the off season, gone through training camp, and there's a lot of stress on those days. I've learned over the years to try to enjoy them a little bit more, but the grinding out of the game plan and all of that is what I really enjoy. And that's probably tough for fans and stuff to hear because they obviously love the game days more. But for coaches, that's a stressful time.
We've talked about your idea of possibly coaching in the CFL in the past. Did that even enter into this equation whatsoever?
I don't think so. I just don't see the excitement with it anymore. That maybe I once did. Like, obviously, some might be critical saying, well, you're not coaching at the highest level. I feel like I'm coaching at the most impressionable level. We're getting parents who are handing over their sons at 17, 18, 19 years old. They're walking across stage as graduates at 23, 24. And whether they play pro football or they're going into a career path in whatever that is, they're hitting society as better people who are battle tested, have dealt with adversity, can individually be motivated, work well in group settings. That's my calling. I enjoy getting a teenage guy and turning him into a man. And that's, what I like doing at Laurier. That's what we're going to do here. So pro football at this point doesn't excite me. And I think, making this decision, is part of that too. It's like, no, here's my calling back to my alma mater. Let's dig our feet in here and make a long journey at it.
Have you had calls from CFL teams or coaches wanting you to go to that level?
Periodically, but nothing recently. I think I've stated with you in the past. It seems to be, a situation where there's a coaching change in the CFL, but the name that gets, called upon is a name that already exists in the CFL. Rarely is it someone from the outside going in. So, no, us U Sport coaches don't get those calls unless you were going to become a running back coach or something. But no one's leaving a position as a head coach to become, a running back coach or a positional coach. It just financially wouldn't make sense for our families, and the stability isn't there. So I think long gone are the days of, Coach Marshall being a head coach at Mac, becoming a head coach at Hamilton. So unless the CFL would be open to do something drastic as that, it would be tough for a U Sport head coach to make a move, and I just don't believe those calls are coming anyways.
I ask because, oftentimes CFL fans who are very passionate, by the way, if you didn't know, are saying, well, how come we don't have more Canadian coaches in the Canadian Football League? And how come we don't have a fresh perspective? So it's not so much to say that you're thinking about going to that level. It's just the idea of that and letting CFL fans know what's really sort of happening behind the scenes. And I think it's great to sort of shine a light on that there are talented coaches at that level, at this level, that have made the jump. Like you said, Greg Marshall, McMaster to Hamilton, and there's a bunch of other examples as well. But people are always asking, hey, is the best coach in U Sports, which I think you could make the argument that you're definitely in that discussion, at least being considered for some of these positions, and not just to be a running back coach, perhaps to be an offensive coordinator, like we saw with, Stefan Potasic and him going from Mac to Hamilton. So that's the reason why I'm asking, is because CFL fans ask me all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm one example, but yeah, those calls for me don't exist. So I don't know what the reasoning is. Obviously, playing the position of quarterback, I've spoken frequently over the years about my bias of how they don't even, at times look at Canadian quarterbacks. Now we're changing that a bit with Nathan Rourke and Trey Ford and Elgersma, with Winnipeg and things like that. But I think there is, a narrative and a stigma as well with Canadian coaches versus guys that have done it in D1. It can come up here, even though the rules are drastically different. And who better to know the rules than those that have coached Canadian rules their whole life?
You mentioned Taylor Elgersma there, and he was on social media and said, beat him so bad they had to poach our coach. Have you had a chance to talk to Taylor? Because I know you guys were very tight. You're somewhat alike in terms of how you approach the game from a playing standpoint. So can you understand kind of the way he's feeling, and have you communicated with him?
Yeah, I understand, how the Laurier people would be upset. 100%. How could you not be? So I'm sympathetic to that. I love Taylor Elgersma. And like you said, we're very much alike. I hold nothing personal. We haven't had a chance to chat. We have texted quite a bit, and we're going to find an opportunity to chat. I told him today I've 6 months of making a commute from KW to London, so I'm going to be in my truck making a lot of phone calls every day, and he's going to be a frequent call I make on those journeys.
Michael, you've been gracious with your time. I appreciate you giving us some insight with some, direct answers here to the way that the process played out. So a lot of people will have eyes on those Western Mustangs to see what Michael Faulds is going to do at the helm, and we appreciate you sharing some light on that process for you moving from Laurier to Western.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Justin. Appreciate it.